Okay, for editing later. Welcome to GreatGizaPyramid.com. Can be easily find me at giza.ws or GreatGizaPyramid.com. You can also check out Giza Pyramid Project. You can text me 24/7, 657-229-GIZA, which is 667-229-4492. I will gladly Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Skype. Did I say that already? Not sure. Doesn't matter. Do it again. You don't even have to stop. That's right. You can edit. Hello. Welcome to GreatGizaPyramid.com. You can also contact me at giza.ws. Contact.giza.ws will get you all my social contacts: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, half a dozen WhatsApp, etc., etc. So you can reach me. Happy to reach you. I'm at GMT -8, according to our current calculator, which goes through Greenwich, England, through the England Observatory. Either way, I am here to talk to you about the Great Giza Pyramid. It is, well, actually the whole plateau, not just the pyramid. You can't really look at the CPU and not look at the rest of the circuit board. You'll understand that when you understand more about the structure. Be happy to talk to you. Check it out. Thanks very much. GizaPyramidProject.com. My goal here is to recreate, preferably in physical form, otherwise in CAD with an Earth engine that takes into account what's actually happening in the world, the Giza Plateau, the Giza Pyramid, and the supporting structures, and to model the structure and show how it is a fabulous machine. And if people would just take the time to look at it, I think you will think it's also a fabulous machine. Thank you. GreatGizaPyramid.com. Also, you can reach me at giza.ws. Contact.giza.ws or contact.greatgizapyramid.com will get you all my social media sites: Twitter, FaceTime, Skype, YouTube, WhatsApp, all that cool stuff. I'm sure there's more, and there will be as time goes on. Life changes. Either way, giza.ws is one of my landing pages. If that doesn't work, GreatGizaPyramid.com. So my goal is to teach you about the plateau, how it worked, what it did, to model the plateau, not the stories about the plateau itself. Hello, world. GreatGizaPyramid.com. Also, giza.ws makes it a little bit shorter. You can interpose those at will. giza.ws, GreatGizaPyramid.com. You can contact me by text or voicemail 24/7, 657-229-GIZA, which translates to 667-229. Ta-da! Hello, world. Great Giza Pyramid, Giza Pyramid Project, giza.ws. What we're going to go over today is we're going to try to do a pulling your head out of the sand bit, the Giza Plateau. First off, we have to be in agreement on some things. The three primary large pyramids on the plateau are aligned in such a way that this structure is at an elevation about 50 feet above this structure, the base of it. This structure is about 40 feet above that structure. So you got a 10-foot deviation and a 40-foot deviation. Now, I'm doing it in feet because most of the maps and terrain in Google does it in feet, but it works the same way in meters. It's just elevation. It all doesn't, the numbers mean some things in some areas, but you don't have to read into them as like mystic numbers. So that is relevant when we look at the internal guts of the three structures. Now, the smaller of the three large pyramids sits, like I said, I'm going to put them next to each other so it's easier, a little bit above it. And this one sits even lower. Now, in proportion, it's not like this because this thing is 480 feet-ish tall, and the deviation of 10 feet is not really noticeable, but I'm building it this way just so that we can look at it. Now, this one, the top is lobbed off of. It's missing the top 30 feet there. We know this. And we'll go into how and why if you haven't seen my other videos. Basic wind, ambient, static electricity will fall onto all three of these structures evenly. Nature does that. This particular structure, if you look at the top of it, and you can find on my YouTube channel, I have one that's Giza Plateau is one of the playlists. And on there, there's a video I have of someone climbing this structure. I don't have anyone climbing this structure. And I have 2 or 3 videos of people climbing this structure. And when you get to the top of this structure, which is an important part, the top of this structure, the blocks are nice and even, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's a nice symmetry. And that's because this is ground. This is neutral. This will have the normal ambient level of static electricity. The second structure, the second largest, assuming this is largest, and this is actually the tallest in elevation, but this is the largest in volume because it's shorter by 30 feet and wider, so it is larger by volume. This is the one they refer to as the Great Giza Pyramid, even though this is the one that many times they show you the photo of as the Great Giza Pyramid. This is the one that the top part is smooth at the top and has the little ground between the planes. This one, when you look at the elevation, the outer surface of the structure, it's about a little thinner there, it gets thicker, thicker. And in addition, the steps are tighter steps, wider, deeper steps, deeper yet, and right down here they got some really big ones. This one is quite amazing. There is a pattern to it, and you can go to surface.giza.ws or surface.greatgizapyramid.com, and it drops you to this map done up by a Bergdahl guy. I think it was Bergdahl. Anyway, it'll drop you to his website, and he has the map there, and you can look at it. And there's a sweeping pattern to it, and I go over this in my pyramid phrenology videos, where we really talk about it. But just to give you a basis, whatever ambient static electricity would be on here is stunted from going up into the ether, where here it's promoted on going up to the ether, and here it's just normal. So this would actually be technically the positive of the three structures. This one today, we put the antenna on there that's grounded right to the corner when you look at pictures of it. And that's to allow the static electricity to vent up into the ether and not give people zaps when they climb up there, which you're not allowed to climb up there unless you grease the right palms. But either way, and at the elevation, the way I drew it, it should be right here. You got the 35th step, which is the largest of them, which stunts that static electricity from getting down to ground evenly. And what that does is it creates a static electric bubble around the surface of the structure, quarantined at the 35th level, and makes the surface be like a big Van de Graaff generator. This would be the negative in comparison of all three on the plateau. Now, let's look at the guts. This particular mark, I'm going to have to do this tight because of how I did it, is where the Queen's Chamber hangs out. At that level. It's not a mystery. At the same level as the floor line, you've got the Grand Gallery that goes up, King's Chamber-ish up here, pre-chamber, the terminals that go to the edge, long hallway, spillway down to the grotto. Grotto is actually, the way I drew it, grotto is at ground level. Actually, it's technically above ground level because the pit in the grotto is at ground level. The grotto itself is slightly above ground level. It is built into the limestone mold. And then from here down, that's all limestone. Got actually the entranceway comes in at the same elevation as the Queen's Chamber. And this goes down. Of course, I drew it poorly. You have to give me some artistic license. You got the subterranean chamber, 2 rooms, like one thing they call the den and shaft. Now, all of this section down here is in a limestone bath. With the exception of this, the pit, which is an earth, and this pit, which is an earth. Everything else is in a limestone bath. So we'll get into how and why in a few moments. But it is. This is the construction. At this same elevation over here, we got the internal guts on the inside of this structure, which right about dead center has its reaction room, a long hallway, and then it comes up to, actually, it goes up to just below the 35th level is where it pierces. And then you got your other entrance, which actually the way I drew it should be perfect because, yeah, ground level comes down and it goes over and back up, right? Okay. And there you go. This structure, what we have is at the same elevation as the King's level. We have our thing that comes down, and at the same elevation as the, actually it's at the same elevation as there, we have that. So though I drew it poorly, it's like so. And then we've got a conduit that comes down in to the structure. Now, we can bicker about how that zigzags back and forth because it's in rhyme and reason with the rest of it, but it comes down and it actually, the soft floor in the Queen's Chamber that they've capped over should go down a little bit below that. So that would be at the same elevation. And the way I drew it, it should be about right. This here comes in at, now paying attention, because right below the Queen's Chamber roof line is where the water line would be. The water line comes across all 3 of these structures. Of course, they're individual pools, all shorted together, because like as if you would have 3 different drinking troughs and they're all with a hose connecting them together, the elevation of the water will maintain because water finds its level. So that's going to be the water level. This takes in from the pool of water into the system, and this area is above the pool of water, so it's allowed to vent directly to the edge and up into the ether. This is going to pull in from below the water level. This one, the water level actually comes in from below the water level, and you've got your whole reaction here and then a whole sub room there and the rest of the stuff. And it has an area that comes up above, and it will go up to about halfway into the Queen's Chamber. And I believe it should be at the same elevation as one of the steps in the niche. should be at the same elevation as to where this actually goes up and then comes down and then has a vent on the east side. That's like a little straw. That's because I believe gas, that it's either a gas or a lighter liquid that they're quarantining in here, is maintained by the pressure so that it doesn't bubble up and out of the system. And the way I did this it's slightly below the moat on this structure is, I think, only about 6-10 feet deep, where here it's deeper and here it's very deep. This between ground level and up there is 20-ish feet, I believe. Here it's, well, since this is 40 feet above it, it's actually got to be more than 20-ish feet. It's below the spillway, the entranceway in, and slightly above, or above the spillway, and below the 35th level. That's the watermark. It's where the entranceway is, where you've got your two chevrons and then your little squiggly thing. I might as well do it properly. Up and down and up and down and up. That the water level should be at the bottom of the bottom of that chevron. That would be your water level, because it's well, again, that goes back to communication. The water level inside the structure is actually at a lower elevation than the water level outside the structure, and that's because of the little squiggly marks. Oh no, the squiggly marks aren't what does it. But when the spillway has that the water has to fight going up and down, it makes it so that maintains the water level of the base water level within the structure. And that base water level is actually slightly below the entrance or the walkway. I say walkway as if it was a walkway. The conduit that goes between what they like to call the Grand Gallery and the Queen's Chamber. It would be maintained below that elevation. And that's because it's separating this pool in one, that's one of the ways they're separating this pool from the pool outside. Told you I'd get back to this. This being positive, this being negative. If we take, and again, I've truncated the plateau. These things are several hundred feet apart, and each with many, and the whole plateau is done like a multi-layer PC board with tracings through it, only the tracings are squared conduits, and they are littered throughout the plateau. And the only one that I thought would have some of the answers to where you go in here and come out there is the guy that died just recently. Hakeem, I think was his name. So that's a mine I would have loved to have tapped. But either way, one of these conduits is going to run down under the plateau, and it's going to work its way across underneath this area, along with other topological features, which I believe helped. It's going to make this be a positive conduit and negative up here, mixing within the system. This being true Earth ground would make the electrons being pulled down through the system. And in such way, this would be the release of oxygen, and up here would be the release of hydrogen. And the hydrogen would actually come out through the holes that are drilled in the southern wall of the grotto that the tomb theory goes for hiding scrolls. But I suggest that it's where they piped the hydrogen out of, across through the whole limestone basin, which is a bubble underneath the structure. One of the great things that they like to point out is how this was so well engineered. It made its own foundation. Well, they point out that it did its own little scoop, and that's because they poured this section, which is a bubble underneath it, separating it from true earth, true ground. It's a limestone basin. I believe it's a poured limestone, but that's a story for another day. The hydrogen goes up above the king's chamber, where they find the seeds and the shells and the dust they can't account for, and then works its way down into the system. And I go over this on several of my other videos. We can go over how the hydrogen is reformed with the oxygen to form water, and water is what runs down into the system, pooling here, spilling back down to the bottom of it, and this is a system. The steam, which comes off of the reaction, is actually what goes up this conduit, which does not breach the surface of the structure. That steam is going to condensate and drip down through the structure. And like I said, this is like a big Van de Graaff generator. So each droplet of steam is picking up an extra electron, tiny bit of static electricity. That droplet becomes a water droplet. That water droplet runs down the system, bringing with it static electricity. It's going to pool that static electricity into the Queen's chamber, which is actually in this structure right in the dead center, but I drew it the way I drew it. Again, artistic license, thank you. And from there, we tap it out of. Now, that's a whole nother story, but that's the system. Oh, I told you it would separate it more. Oxygen comes out of here because it has to fight through those squiggles. Remember those squiggles I was telling you about? It's fighting, oxygen is fighting its way out, water is fighting its way in. That's what maintains the facade water level, which is actually below the water level outside the structure. So this whole thing is pooled in here, which is at the exact same elevation. This whole area here is at the exact same elevation as the reaction chamber here. And the reaction chamber here is actually at a lower elevation. And that's because they're playing with the, well, we'll get into what and why when we actually bicker about what's happening in here, because what's occurring in here echoes over to here and here. Even though you don't think it, I believe that the pools outside of here actually come up and join to the conduits that we found behind the wall. And they're pulling one thing or the other out of this room, whether it just be the static electricity or the static electricity is a catalyst for a reaction occurring. And these other two structures are pooling the two things. I believe this is the one harvesting it, maintaining it within the pool and having it so it can't get out because of nature and the forces of pressures. It is trapped within the system and milked out through the siphon on the east side of the structure, where they, when you look at it top down, they've got a whole little production zone thing going there. That is where, right about there is a conduit, and that conduit, they don't know where it goes to. I believe it's gonna, if we blew some smoke or something up inside the structure, I bet you it would come out over there. Maybe some, I wouldn't say stink bomb or something. I don't know, whatever works. But to confirm that there's a conduit between there would show that what is produced and maintained within here, kept within the water holding that within the structure, and its only outlet is on the side where it can be easily pulled out and extracted. This is your actual production of whatever is being produced, and nature should tell us what is being produced. I'm just pointing out what is occurring within the structure. So basically that's a nutshell the system, and where they were getting pieces to make the whole system run. Exactly what they're constructing here, I'd really like to see what nature would do here with this, which I didn't point out, but I should mention, they've got a little dog tooth there. So the gases that are within here, whether it be hydrogen, oxygen, a mixture thereof, I'm not quite sure that it wouldn't be like something like ammonia or something, or any other derivative of what can be produced when you get hydrogen, oxygen burning together with an abundance of nitrogen being added, because it's adding air to the system, not pure oxygen. The oxygen is vented out. So the pure oxygen goes up and out of the system. Here it's air coming in, which is 21% oxygen, but it's 78% nitrogen. And, 1% carbon dioxide. So it makes Al Gore happy. We're burning carbon dioxide. Anyway, that's the flow of this system. These pools are milking something from the reaction there. And then because this whole pool outside of here is being grounded positively, this is going to wind up being the positive side of the reaction, which makes me think that this is just going to be pure old oxygen that's collecting in here and bubbling out of the system here, which would force the water elevation within here down lower, which is why this kind of has the same look and feel of there, and would cause its water level to be down here, which would add a little bit of pressure to the pool out here. So this pool would have a tiny bit more pressure, let's just call it 2 units of pressure, than the body of water around the pyramid itself, which is just sitting at stagnant pressure. No pressure is being put down on it. There's no piston being pushed down. Where here you have a piston being pushed down because you're pushing down lower than the ambient air outside here. Here, although it's oxygen, it is still a gas and it is pushing down on it, which makes the pool here a tighter surface tension. Here, you're also having a reaction because you're having the gas in here filling up and pushing down, but it can't ever achieve a higher elevation than here. And I'm not sure exactly, well, I am sure exactly why, because I drew this wrong. This lip actually should come at a higher elevation than the pool outside. Of course, since I drew it at such a, should come at a higher internally. I think it's at slightly below that because I don't have to relook at it, but it comes up and it's such that this gas can't push up because the water level out there, it has to kind of be sucked like a straw. You suck it and that will allow the gas to come up. And then as soon as you stop sucking, the water will come back in, fill it up, and cap it off. And this will only build up the gas pressure. Well, I guess it could. I'd have to look at more of the internal guts of here. And the problem I have here is I do have a nice person that sent me a video of them walking through here and climbing around. I don't have good video from within this structure. So the CAD pictures and the drawings I have, I've learned from reconstructing this structure that the drawings are many times embellishments based off of the structure and not a good depiction of the structure itself. So I reserve some judgment for here, but the overall structure, that's what it looks like. And anyone who is intimately familiar with either of these structures, either all three of them, I'd be glad to bicker with you because I want your knowledge. If you've been there, if you've played on the plateau as a child or something, I had somebody who said they spent like 4 months there doing research. So as I asked them a couple of questions, they got lost because they spent research in a classroom talking to people, not looking at the structure. The structure is what gives us the answers because the structure dictates everything. Stories can dictate anything, not the answer. They come up with whatever fabrication. This one here, the surface tension should also be, I believe it is at a higher surface tension because of what's occurring within here, but exactly what's occurring, I don't know. Oh, and this winds up being at a lower elevation than here. So whatever's in here, and I think I think all three pools are shorted together. But at minimum, I believe these two are. And that is because where I believe this is the reaction for oxygen, this would be in its inverse, where the hydrogen is being played with. And I believe they are catching hydrogen, but not necessarily just hydrogen. It may be what I like to call heavy hydrogen, D2, because as some people know if they pay attention and read too much, for every about 7,000 droplets of water, one of those droplets is going to wind up being heavy water. And when you bring it down into the pool and capture it in here, I really think that we're capturing heavy water. I think that's its goal, more than just static electricity. I think it's twofold. It might be multiple-fold. It might be threefold, fourfold, fivefold. But I think there's more to it than just getting static electricity by the way that these are set up to quarantine, restrict, and hold something. Just look at it like a phase separator, a three-phase separator. It's set up to have different either surface tensions of water or different densities of water, and quarantine them and play with them based on their characteristics and density. And well, that's about enough for today. I have many other areas and avenues I can go to. I just wanted to stick to this was basically based on some arguments in messaging where people kept saying, but you don't talk about this. No, I'm like, because you guys got your head in the sand and you're focused on a tomb theory. And I don't want to debate about a tomb theory. I don't want to argue, does Santa Claus have buttons or are they clips on his vest? Does he have 7, 8, or 9 reindeer? Does Rudolph have a nose, or has he been retired? I don't care about any of that. Those are stories. I want to base on the facts. Talk to me about Krampus and St. Nicholas and Yule holidays and winter solstice. Hey, those are facts. I'm not into snowman. All right, thank you. Wish you all a Merry Christmas, even though I can tell you how the Roman Catholic Church developed that one. Based on pagan holidays, don't worship the sun, worshiping people. Now I'm babbling off. Have a good day. You can contact me, WhatsApp or text messaging or email all the time. You can email me at GreatGizaPyramid.com, contact at GreatGizaPyramid.com, contact at Giza.ws. Thank you. Have a nice day.